Ying was a broke security guard with negative aura and no hose. However, everything changed when he saves a hot mage with the kiss of life, but accidentally absorbed her powers. Now, he gets stronger every time he gets freaky with her. It all started one terrible night while Yin was patrolling the rooftop, only to find a mysterious girl in the air. Mizu, who was busy activating heavenly tribulation, immediately got distracted, and as she looked at him, a lightning suddenly struck her, sending her back to the ground unconscious. Ying initially pretended not to see her, but changed his mind to try the infamous sea-purr he had seen in movies. He dipped his mouth in hers immediately, causing a glow that lit up into the sky, but just a few seconds later, Mizu opened her eyes to his ugly face and slapped him. He panicked and tried to explain it was all a misunderstanding, but she accused him of stealing her first kiss from her. She slapped him again and left in anger, hoping she would never see him again. Meanwhile, on her way back, she was glad that at least the idiot didn't see the heavenly tribulation or he could have died. But then, she suddenly experienced a shock and realized her power had been reduced. She wondered what had happened and thought she had to look into this. Meanwhile, that same night, Ying began to feel feverish as he slept, and a bright light shone in his room. The next day, he sat in a park wondering why he was feeling so refreshed today, and his eyesight had improved so he could now spot melons from 2 miles away. He suddenly noticed the violent girl from yesterday walking past with a random rich mofo asking her out and thought the two idiots belonged together. But then, a creepy invisible eye appeared in the sky, and noticing a new cultivator, it decided to test Ying's new ability by unscrewing a large billboard over a random girl calling on the street. Seeing this, Ying immediately ran toward the girl, and as the billboard almost turned the girl from 3 to 2D, he accidentally activated an extraordinary power that crashed the billboard into a different building. However, he collapsed afterward. He shockingly woke up in a hotel room tied to a bed with Mizu touching him in sensitive places. She opened her buttons so he could have a view of her mommy milkers, but when she saw he was acting like a noob,
"Come on, man,"
she withdrew, saying the techniques she learned on YouTube didn't work. Mizu then told him she was going to take back what belonged to her, but he didn't remember taking anything from her. At this, she reminded him about the lady he saved, and told him he used her power to save her, but Ying still thought Mizu was capping. Mizu then revealed that she was a cultivator and activated a sword, threatening to cut off his sacs. She gave him 2 options, either to die under her black sky or to cultivate together with her and become immortal. Later in the elevator, Ying was marveled by the beauty of the city, but Mizu told him not to be deceived because that was only the surface, as the world was more evil and darker than he thought. However, Ying replied that even though he knew this, he would rather keep his eyes on the bright part and use his cultivation powers to help those in the dark. But Mizu told him it was not as easy as he thought. They headed to the rooftop of a skyscraper, and Mizu asked Ying if he wanted to develop his cultivation either fast or slow. He replied that he wanted it fast, and she told him to jump from the building, shocking him.
What?
She explained that people usually got very powerful in the face of death, and since he didn't want to die, he could awaken his powers. However, Ying asked what if he failed, and she answered that there would only be news about a school's security hugging the ground the next day, but if he refused to jump, he would still end up dead anyway, since other cultivators would come after him. So he'd better give it a try. Ying, having no choice, thought this was her corny way of getting revenge, so he moved closer to the edge, still hesitant, but Mizu pushed him down. As he fell, he tried to enter the avatar state to summon the power he used in saving the girl earlier that day, but bro soon realized he was cooked, and he was really going to die. His eyes soon went dark, but just then, he saw Mizu coming for him, and hope filled his eyes again. However, she caught and told him she was going to die with him. He accepted his fate and hugged her tightly as they continued to fall. However, suddenly he grew wings and landed like a pro before taking off again, like he had been doing this for 15 years. Meanwhile, Mizu was already getting moist from his aura, but she suddenly grabbed him and brought him crashing to the ground, telling him not to get cocky because the cultivation world didn't show mercy to newbies. She asked him not to show off next time, or someone other than her would be there to send him to his maker. Meanwhile, in a different location, this master had sensed some power fluctuations and asked his subordinate to go check it out and test his strength. He then asked her to eliminate him if she found him to be weak. The next day, as Muzi and Ying walked through the street, the rich, jobless idiot was still waiting for Muzi to agree to go on a date with him, but Muzi told him she was too tired because she had just returned from a hotel with Ying. The idiot got jealous instantly and tried to beat Ying senseless, but Muzi stepped in with a slap to his disgusting face, telling him only she was allowed to beat her man. She then walked away with Ying walking behind her like a coward who just got defended. Later, Muzi found Ying gaming on an ancient phone and mocked him, saying she wasn't sure that he could even use WeChat. Bro replied that he was okay with the messaging feature, but realizing it was his broke side talking, she took it from him and handed him an iTelephone, instantly making him break down in tears. Afterward, he got curious and asked her why she didn't isekai him even though she was as powerful as others in the cultivation world she had warned him against. She replied that it was because he had sucked most of her energy spirit, and if she unalived him, it would be gone forever, unless they cultivated together. Then he asked if they could go down that night,
Damn good deal.
instantly making her chest beat faster. She immediately grabbed him and started running in any direction, because she couldn't wait till night as she was already dripping her pants. While she dragged him away, Ying realized that he was already falling for her. Meanwhile, the girl sent to test him, Yui, was on a rampage, feasting on blood like it was juice. The next morning, Yue hit the streets in search of the dude that had the spirit energy, and seeing that it might take some work to find who it was, she came up with an idea to upload her pictures on Tinder with the dancing seduction spell on them to attract guys to her. However, only ugly fatzos with no spirit energy were coming for her, and she beat up every last one of them in anger. Frustrated, she wondered why the real dude wasn't showing up, and thought maybe he belonged to the category of the rainbow community, so she decided to change the direction of her seduction. That night in the security guard's dorm, while Ying was doom scrolling YouTube shorts, he suddenly noticed his senior, Lee, who happened to be in the category, stand up from his seat after chatting with a cute boy on his PC. Lee headed out in search of the cute boy like a sheep heading to its slaughter, and noticing the weird behavior he was exhibiting, Ying decided to follow him before he became the next victim of organ cropping. Lee headed toward Yue like a zombie, and seeing him, she immediately checked if he had any spirit energy, but she discovered that bro didn't even have any energy, not to mention spirit. So she turned to leave, but Lee pursued after her, causing her to deliver a Mike Tyson punch to his jaw, sending him into the air. Ying immediately activated his wings and saved him, amusing Yue because she had just found who he was looking for. Meanwhile, Lee switched his affection onto Ying and started craving his magnum, which freaked Ying out as he thought of Lee's tool destroying him. Yue removed the dancing seduction spell and Lee immediately regained his senses. However, Lee thought Ying had been trying to make a move on him, and he became shy, but Ying immediately excused himself before the fatso forced him on his fours. As he ran off, he was suddenly hit by Yue's seduction spell again, and he began acting like a zombie, craving her so much. He soon met her at the rooftop, and she immediately activated spirit restrictions around them to prevent their spirit energy from leaking out to other cultivators to detect. Ying acted so cringe that she punched him in the face and removed the spell instantly before she got tempted to eat his meat. Returning to his senses, Ying wondered what was going on and how he got to the rooftop in the first place. Yue then summoned a sword, intending to end him, making him realize what Mizu said was true. He tried to escape, but she caught him and threw him back to the ground, removing his pants in the process. Yue attempted attacking him again, but Mizu interrupted at that moment. Seeing Ying, she called him shameless for pulling his pants in front of a girl, but he told her he could explain. Meanwhile, Yue revealed that Ying had proposed to her earlier, and hearing this, Mizu told him to get on his knees till she was done dealing with Yue. This made Ying really think of how useless and cheap he was. A few minutes into his punishment, the clown spotted the two girls arguing and had the audacity to claim they were fighting over him, which ticked off both girls so much they immediately gave him a reality check by knocking his lights out. The two girls prepared to throw hands, and Mizu told Ying she'd be communicating with him via telepathy from now on. Yue scanned their power levels and discovered that Ying was in the mid-stage of key condensation, while Mizu was in the early stage of foundation establishment. This made Yue lose her mind because these two weaklings had the nerve to release spiritual energy in public. Mizu used her mental hotline to remind Ying about the cultivation lesson she gave him during their last training session. She had explained how the different levels of cultivation worked and how there was a massive gap between each stage. She basically told him he'd get sent to the afterlife if he ever faced someone stronger than him, unless he had some special weapon to level the playing field. Yue suddenly launched her attack, and Mizu immediately figured out this girl was actually in the late stage of foundation establishment, which meant she was way out of their league. Even if she teamed up with Ying, they'd still get absolutely demolished, but Mizu wasn't backing down, so she summoned her sword and jumped into the fight anyway. The two started going at it in an intense battle exchange. Then Yue whipped out her fiery sword and sent a blazing attack, but Mizu pulled a disappearing act and teleported right above her before striking down with her black sky technique, sending Yue crashing into the ground like a meteor. Mizu yelled at Ying to get out of there immediately and promised she'd catch up with him later. The two fighters clashed again with their powers, but Yue completely overpowered Mizu and grabbed her by the neck. She then dragged her up into the sky before slamming her back down to earth like she was playing volleyball. Mizu became super weak and started writhing in pain, but Yue wasn't done yet and kept beating her down. Then she summoned an even more powerful attack and unleashed it on the poor girl. Mizu quickly threw up her defense restriction to block it, but the attack was way too overwhelming for her to handle. Meanwhile, as Ying made his escape, his brain finally started working and he realized that Mizu would never make it out of that fight alive with such a huge difference in their power levels. On the other side of town, Yue's master finished adding more victims to his collection and started thinking about harvesting Yue's soul too after she returned from her mission. He wanted to use her to break through to the late stage of the core formation stage, because loyalty means nothing to him. Mizu kept fighting with everything she had, but eventually got hit hard. Yue walked up to her and tried planting some toxic thoughts in her head about how Ying was a coward for running away and leaving her behind. But Mizu refused to think badly of him because she wasn't about to let this villain mess with her head. Mizu told Yue that people like her would never understand true loyalty, which made Yue absolutely furious. She instantly tried to send Mizu to the next world, but Ying came flying back like a superhero and took the hit instead. Mizu, who thought she was about to become a ghost, got completely shocked when she saw him return. She started crying and remembered her mom telling her when she was little that the man she'd marry someday would have to be someone who could comfort her, take care of her, and protect her from getting hurt. As the two lovebirds spent what they thought were their final moments hugging each other, Yue got so annoyed she kicked Ying away and knocked Mizu unconscious. He lost consciousness and woke up in another dimension where he met some guardian of the underworld who introduced himself as Chuanzi. This completely blew Ying's mind. Chuanzi summoned the black sky and showed off its power, which got Ying all excited because he recognized the weapon immediately. Chuanzi told him that his spirit energy came from the same source as his own, but he was surprised that Ying wasn't from the same bloodline. He then figured out that this guy must be the cultivation partner of one of his descendants. Ying remembered Mizu talking about her ancestor and wondered if this was the same person she mentioned. So he decided to drop her name and see how Chuanzi would react. He told Chuanzi he was Mizu's husband, which amused the old guardian as he realized this was indeed his descendant's cultivation partner. He then decided to give Ying a special gift to help boost his cultivation game. He summoned the Hun Tian beads and handed them over, explaining that he got them by chance hundreds of years ago and had left something inside that might help him out. Chuanzi then mentioned he was running low on spirit energy, so he could only help him escape his current dangerous situation. The guardian prepared to leave and told Ying he'd get his power back as soon as he returned to his world. However, when Ying asked how he was supposed to use the beads, the old man just ghosted him without giving an answer. Later, while Mizu cried over his unconscious body like she was at a funeral, a bright beam of light suddenly shot from his body into the sky. Ying emerged from the light with a completely changed appearance, carrying Mizu in his arms, which absolutely shocked Yue and left her wondering what the heck just happened. She got completely shook by the insane spirit power radiating from him and how fast he was leveling up like he had cheat codes enabled. She started panicking, thinking she couldn't fight him at her current trash level and might actually get sent to the afterlife at this rate. She wondered if his power level was even higher than her master's, so she immediately activated her fire whip and launched an attack. But Ying destroyed it with just one word, which left her absolutely stunned, and she collapsed to the ground like a deflated balloon. Now that her magic weapon was completely wrecked, this girl decided the best solution was to jump off the roof since she had zero hope left. But Ying quickly leaped after her and saved her, which totally caught her off guard. He called her an idiot and told her it was just a fight and she didn't need to delete herself from existence over something so basic. He suggested she could just run away instead, which was way better than becoming a pancake on the pavement. As they returned to the rooftop, the ungrateful brat pushed him away and asked what a weakling like him knew about how cruel the world really was. She took off, and while Ying was worried about her mental state, Mizu told him not to waste his energy caring about it since everyone had their own baggage to deal with. She then pinched his ear and started interrogating him about the crazy power he just showed off. He tried to deceive her by saying it had always been his dream to act cool for once, but she wasn't buying his garbage explanation, so she bonked him on the head and started dragging him somewhere. Later in the hotel room, she asked him why his spirit power suddenly went through the roof, but he just spewed nonsense to avoid telling her what actually went down. She told him that his ability to absorb her spirit power was a complete mystery, but he kept playing dumb. So she decided it was time for some special interrogation techniques. She tied him to the bed and climbed on top of him, ready for some action. She told him this was the co-cultivation method from the Li family, and then planted a kiss on him. She told him not to freak out and explained that the co-cultivation method could balance yin and yang by letting their spirit power flow through both their bodies, after which they could get down to business. Ying entered another dimension and surprisingly found the scene familiar. Their spirit powers merged together, and he suddenly started seeing the deep memories hidden inside her mind. He woke up in some strange field, apparently inside Mizu's memory, and looked around wondering where she was. Then he spotted a locked door and walked over to check it out. As soon as he touched it, light started shining from it and it opened instantly to another place where he saw a drop of blood falling from a flower. He stared in confusion, wondering what was happening, when young Mizu suddenly appeared wearing a sad expression. She started drawing his clothes without saying a single word. Then a black hole opened beneath them, and they both fell into it. Meanwhile, Mizu was also exploring Ying's memory, heading toward the sea of his consciousness. She planned to get closer so she could use their spirit energy to detect which parts came from the same origin. However, when she got closer, she felt an overwhelming surge from a magic weapon, which she confirmed was actually alive, completely shocking her. She immediately got sucked into another tragic scene that she had experienced before. She saw people lying dead on the floor and then spotted her nemesis, which scared her as he approached to send her to the next world too. Ying woke up from his short nap in the middle of a burning house and immediately heard someone calling for help. He quickly rushed there and was shocked to see some strange man standing on top of a building. As he wondered who this creep was, a wounded woman kept crying for help, but the strange guy approached and eliminated her before Ying could do anything to save her. They both snapped back to reality, and Mizu started sobbing while Ying thought about her painful past, which made him determined to protect her no matter what. A few moments later, Mizu told him that her family had 34 descendants in modern civilization, but all of them except her were isekai'd that night because of their family treasure called Black Sky. She added that she would get revenge someday as long as she kept holding on to the treasure. Ying asked her what the guy's cultivation level was and suggested they could team up to defeat him, but she told him that wouldn't be easy because he had reached the early stage of nascent soul, making him the highest cultivation level patriarch who also had 6 other elders with him at the independent soul level. If they faced him now, he would turn and use them for dinner. Hearing this, Ying reassured her he would help her defeat this villain. She then gave him a quick peck on his cheek, and he turned red in embarrassment. He decided to spill the beans about his spirit energy, which he had been hiding from her, but she told him not to worry about it since she didn't detect any secrets in his consciousness earlier, but instead felt a warmth she hadn't experienced in a long time. She soon told him to get going, which shocked this idiot who already thought he was about to get lucky that night. On his way back to his duty post, he discovered that the Hun Tian beads he got from Chuanzi were missing, making him panic about how he was going to survive in this modern cultivation world without any power-ups. However, when he got back to his room, he was stunned to see Yui lying on his bed in a lingerie, waiting for him like it was her turn that night. She told him she needed a favor from him, but the way she was dressed wasn't helping Ying keep his thoughts pure. She explained that she didn't have anywhere else to crash and asked if she could sleep in his bed, which made him wonder where the heck he was supposed to sleep then. Li immediately jumped at the opportunity and offered to share his bed with Ying, but dude would rather sleep on the cold hard floor than have his backside damaged from impact. The next day, a whole parade of unattractive guys who had fallen under some dancing seduction spell lined up in front of Yue to ask her out, but she was getting frustrated that she only seemed to attract total losers. Another ugly suitor arrived in his car and almost ran over one of the other guys. This fool spotted Mizu approaching and immediately started acting like a lovesick puppy, asking her out on a date, but Mizu shut him down hard, telling him he was too ugly and would need to prove he could take care of her and protect her for the rest of his life if he wanted to qualify as boyfriend material. She then suggested that Yue would be perfect for him instead, but Yue also rejected the idea, saying she didn't want some weak spoiled brat who couldn't protect her either. One of the ugly suitors volunteered himself as the perfect candidate, but Yue gave him a knockout punch and pointed directly at Ying, declaring that he was the one she wanted. Ying became super embarrassed thinking about the complicated mess his love life had become, and as he walked over to Mizu, She told him she had been thinking about going to watch a movie with him. Yue immediately pressed herself against him and said she also wanted to watch a movie with him, which made Mizu absolutely furious. The two girls started fighting over him like he was the last piece of cake at a birthday party, and all the other guys around them began spitting blood from pure jealousy. Later at the cinema, the two girls completely ignored the movie they had paid to see and spent the entire time bickering over who got to have a feel of Ying. The two creeps even ended up kissing themselves while trying to peck him. The next day, Ying was carrying a gift for Mizu, hoping to smooth things over after the misunderstanding about his relationship with Yue. However, on his way to meet her, Zhao intercepted him with a bunch of equally ugly cronies, planning to beat him up for stealing his crush away from him. The thugs asked if he knew he had offended someone important, but Ying played dumb and pretended he had no idea what they were talking about. They immediately tried to jump him, but he managed to trick them and attempted to escape. Unfortunately, Zhao's butler tricked him up and made him fall flat on his face. The men chased after him like a pack of wild dogs, but before they could catch him, Yue and Mizu spotted the situation from a distance and quickly rushed to his rescue, delivering a beatdown to all the attackers. Afterward, Ying presented his gift to Mizu with nervous excitement, but when she opened it to see what was inside, she realized he was really just completely clueless. He told her he was inexperienced since this was his first time giving a girl a present, and he had figured that all girls would love receiving chickens as gifts. Mizu became disappointed in his complete lack of common sense, and he started begging her for forgiveness while offering to get her another ridiculous gift. Meanwhile, Yue watched how the two of them were interacting with each other, got jealous of their obvious chemistry, and decided to leave them alone together. At the same time, her master was on the top of a building watching her, and hoping she wouldn't disappoint him. After that awkward gift exchange, Mizu and Ying walked together while chatting about the gift he had just presented to her. They spotted Yue walking ahead by herself, looking like the loneliest person on the planet. Ying figured she looked exactly like his old self when he always solo with zero friends. He told Mizu he wanted to go talk to her, and she agreed, so he jogged over to catch up with the sad girl. He offered to be her friend, but Yue smacked his hand away and told him that if he hadn't gotten that major power boost the day before, she would have sent both him and Mizu straight to the afterlife without hesitation. She also revealed that the only reason she had gotten close to him was because he had powerful energy and could serve as her personal bodyguard against danger. However, he told her not to stress about it since he would protect her anyway, but she asked if Mizu was the one who had sent him over to mess with her feelings. He replied that she had completely misunderstood Mizu's character and explained that he had been inside her spiritual world and discovered she was carrying the massive burden of her family's tragic death on her shoulders. He told Yue that Mizu also felt lonely just like they did, despite her tough exterior. Yue admitted she had thought Mizu was just some arrogant wealthy princess who looked down on everyone, but he explained that Mizu was only putting up a strong front in public, and he was literally the only person she could actually depend on for support. Yue realized this was why he was so desperately committed to protecting Mizu at all costs, and he promised her he would do his best to protect her too because they were genuine friends now. However, she got all flustered by his kindness and ran off like a scared rabbit, while Mizu tapped Ying on the shoulder and warned him not to comfort Yue too much or she would get seriously jealous. Later that night, some random couple started getting busy in a romantic situation, but Yue's boss suddenly appeared. He told them to cut out their activities immediately, and when the guy tried to defend his girlfriend, the old psycho just lifted him up and snapped his neck. He then activated his evil powers while reasoning that the fruit he had been carefully nurturing for years, Yue, was now fully matured and ready for harvest. Following this gruesome scene, he dragged the two dead lovers to his secret hideout, and Yue came to meet him there while desperately thinking of an escape plan so she wouldn't become her master's next snack. He asked her about the mission he had given her, and she apologized for failing, explaining that Ying had gotten incredibly more powerful during their fight, so much so that she couldn't eliminate him even if she tried her hardest. He told her it was perfectly fine and revealed that he had reached another breakthrough point since he had absorbed the blood of the two lovers he had just eliminated. In 10 days, he would delete both Ying and Mizu from existence completely, after which he would absorb their blood and level up to the late stage of core formation. He then instructed Yue to keep them distracted and prevent them from discovering his existence. Following that, Ying searched through the forest looking for Yue, and after wandering around for a while, she suddenly appeared dressed in a way that would make a monk reconsider his decisions. He was completely shocked to see her transformation and asked why she had called him out in the middle of the night dressed so provocatively, but she ignored his question and started unbuttoning her clothes right in front of him.
Nice.
Ying became super nervous and quickly covered his face while still leaving a tiny opening to peek at her. She asked him if he would like to clap, but he was too embarrassed to say yes and told her he couldn't betray Mizu like that, even though he was clearly tempted. She got angry at his rejection and immediately summoned her magic weapon, then started attacking him with deadly strikes, but he dodged all her moves. She challenged him to use his spirit energy to fight back properly, but he refused, saying he couldn't battle his friend no matter what, and she warned him he would die if he kept being so stubborn. She soon tried to stab him like she had attempted before, but he didn't fight back or try to resist the attack, which broke her down into tears as she beat him for not using his spirit energy to defend himself. She demanded to know why he wouldn't fight her, and he gently patted her head while explaining that his spirit energy was meant for protecting her, not hurting her. Mizu found them in this sus position and threatened to cut off his dangles for cheating on her, so they quickly separated like they had been caught red-handed. Yue then told them that even if she didn't eliminate them herself, her master would eventually finish the job anyway, but Ying said this was exactly why they desperately needed her help on their side. She then revealed the shocking truth that her master had sensed the release of their spirit energy during their recent battles, which made them both realize they were in serious trouble. They figured out that her master had sent her to fight them just to test their power levels through combat and gather intelligence. Yue told them her master would soon reach the middle stage of core formation, and after that transformation, he would definitely delete them from existence without breaking a sweat, making Ying realize it was time to start preparing for their ultimate final boss battle. Meanwhile, back at his hideout, Yue's master finished consuming the 2 dead students and got excited that his cultivation level was increasing at lightning speed. He figured that what he needed now was Ying and Mizu's blood, which would break him through to the middle stage of core formation and save him 10 years worth of boring cultivation grinding. Ying concluded that Yue's master was basically the root of all their problems. But this genius thought that Yue going against her master would be breaking some ancient moral code like she owed him her life or something. However, Mizu dropped some reality and told him that teacher-student relationships were dead in this backstabbing cultivation world where everyone was busy, plotting each other's downfall behind fake smiles. Ying then asked Yue if she had been stuck with this master since she was young, and she decided to spill her tragic backstory. Way back in the day, she lived in some tiny village where her parents treated her like their precious little princess. The problem was that she had 0 friends because all the other youngjins kept calling her a monster and bullying her non-stop. After she finished handing out free reality checks to these bullies for stepping on her last nerve, even though she tried her best to keep her temper in check, she would escape to this cave to hang out with her only friend, a snake spirit. She spent her time feeding this slithery buddy and nursing her back to health from whatever injuries she had. Yue kept wishing her snake bestie would level up into human form so they could actually chat and she could show everyone how loyal her friend was. She thought they would be ride or die friends forever, but life had other plans that would rip them apart. One day, while heading to the cave for her usual snake hangout session, she walked past some fortune teller who was busy scamming a crowd of clueless people with his fake predictions. This old fraud suddenly spotted her walking by and tried to stop her, but she zoomed past him because she had 0 interest in his nonsense. However, as she kept walking, the old man started yapping about how she had some special body and offering to teach her the way of Tao. But Yue couldn't care less about his sales pitch and only thought about the food she needed to bring to her friend. The geezer kept running his mouth and suddenly warned her to stay away from that monster she called a friend, which made her freeze up. He added that this creature would be the reason she would lose everything she held dear if she didn't cut ties immediately. But Yue ran off because she wasn't trying to hear any of his doom and gloom predictions. She rushed to the cave and found blood splashed everywhere. She became horrified and immediately started sprinting back to town. She tripped and face-planted hard, but when she looked up, she got the shock of her lifetime as she saw her entire city looking like a barbecue gone horribly wrong. The snake spirit was apparently having a field day, sending everyone on express trips to the afterlife without any discrimination. Yue returned to her burning city in pure terror and started searching for her parents among the pile of bodies scattered everywhere. She soon discovered that her parents had also received their one-way tickets to the great beyond, and she broke down crying like her world had just ended. She suddenly spotted the fortune teller lying there all beaten up and barely breathing, so she rushed over to him. He revealed that the snake spirit had escaped into the forest and croaked while trying to tell her to go after the monster. Yue kept bawling her eyes out, blaming herself for being responsible for everyone getting deleted from existence. She grabbed a metal rod and headed straight for the forest to hunt down the snake spirit. But when she reached the cave, some random dude appeared and called her an idiot for trying to take on the snake spirit solo like some kind of action hero. He apologized for not stopping the monster from turning her village into a graveyard and told her she needed to stay alive since she was literally the only person left from her hometown. Yue ignored his advice and tried to push past him, but failed miserably. The stranger explained that she couldn't defeat the snake spirit because these creatures became absolutely unhinged during full moon nights. He then handed her some special weapon that could actually delete the monster for good. Yui immediately snatched it and followed the trail of snake blood into the forest until she found her former friend lying on the ground, looking like she had been through a blender. She approached the snake spirit while still boiling with rage over her village getting wiped out and threatened to end her, demanding to know why she had committed this massacre. The snake spirit suddenly lunged at her, making Yui hit the dirt in fear. However, she managed to activate the dagger in her hand and stabbed the creature as it got closer. The snake spirit collapsed on her shoulder and died, which triggered a flood of memories showing all the good times they had shared together. After she finally crawled out of the forest, she saw the old man floating in the air like some kind of mystical being and immediately figured he was an immortal. She dropped to her knees and begged him to bring back all the people from her village, but he told her that life, death, and reincarnation were controlled by heavenly laws that he wouldn't dare mess with by playing resurrection games. She told him her heart felt like it was getting shredded and asked what she should do about it. He offered her the chance to become his student on the cultivation journey, promising it would numb her heart so she wouldn't feel any more pain. She was stunned and immediately agreed to become his apprentice. After that, he became her master and she followed him down the cultivation path. But one day during training, she made a shocking discovery that he was using some twisted blood-drinking techniques to boost his cultivation level. His whole vibe toward her changed from mentor to predator, and he started looking at her like she was his next meal instead of his student. Back in the present, Ying was completely blown away by this story, and she explained that this type of evil technique could drain normal people's blood to increase cultivation power. When it came to consuming a cultivator's blood, it could make him break through to higher levels. Basically, cultivator blood was like premium energy drinks for his twisted training method. Mizu then realized that if Yui's master defeated them and drank their blood, he would break through to late-stage core formation level, which made them all panic about their current situation. Mizu declared that they were completely cooked even with their artificial weapons, but Yui told them they needed to move fast because if they sat around twiddling their thumbs, her master would finish his evil blood-drinking technique and steal their spirit energy by force. Upon hearing this terrifying news, Ying turned into a complete chicken and suggested to Mizu that they should just run away to some distant place where nobody could find them. Mizu also started daydreaming about withdrawing from society to some romantic hideaway where they could spend quality time together. Yui got jealous watching these two lovebirds having their moment and immediately shut down their ridiculous fantasy, telling them that her master would track them down no matter where they tried to hide. Ying, still being a complete moron, then begged Mizu to transfer all her spirit energy to him because he thought this might give him enough power to defeat the old creep. He added that even if he died in the process, he wouldn't mind trading his life for her happiness. The two started having another one of their cheesy romantic moments, but Yui gave his a solid knock to his head. Ying asked her what they should do then, and she replied that they might actually have a shot if they worked as a team. He became shocked, wondering if she was planning to turn against her master, and she replied that this wouldn't even count as rebellion since her master had been eyeing her spirit energy like a hungry wolf for ages. Her gut was telling her that her expiration date was coming up fast. She pleaded that she didn't want to just accept death lying down, saying they still had a fighting chance as long as they worked together. Mizu warned him not to trust this proposal because it might be a trap, but Yui explained that her master's talent was pretty trash, and she had no clue why. However, her master finally managed to reach core formation stage after years of stealing other people's blood. She added that she had spent half her training time just to reach foundation establishment stage, but if her master kept speedrunning his cultivation by draining others, she would be pushing up daisies before she ever reached core formation. Ying asked if their teamwork would actually give them a chance to beat this guy, and she replied that they might still have hope since her master hadn't completed his evil technique yet. If not, they could only pray to their souls don't perish in fire. She further explained that they needed to launch a surprise attack while his guard was down, but Mizu objected that even if all three of them ganged up on him, they were still just a bunch of weaklings compared to his power level. However, Yui revealed that his blood-drinking technique had a major weakness, and if they could lure him into their trap, there might be a chance to take him down. Later that night, Mizu and Ying were at the hotel, and he asked her if they would be getting cultured tonight, but Mizu bonked his head in response, calling him a loser for even suggesting that. However, she was really just jealous that he was trying to play hero for Yui again, but he replied that he was only trying to live up to the name his father gave him. Mizu thought this was actually a solid answer and told him that since he had decided to fight, they needed to boost their chances of winning. This got him excited because he thought she had agreed to get down on him so they could reach core formation together, but she gave him a big no again. He got bummed out, wondering why they even got a hotel room then. She suddenly grabbed his hand and told him that the last time they kissed, she saw a glowing orb in his consciousness world. but he played dumb like he didn't know what she was talking about. Mizu told him that wasn't it, saying she felt that the energy of this light ball was similar to her family's power and it wasn't the same spirit energy he had absorbed from her. She added that this power was stronger than anything she had ever seen, but he told her he felt this was just his potential as a cultivator. Furthermore, she told him that if he could successfully tap into this energy, they might actually be able to defeat the old dude they were up against. He asked her how he could unleash this power, and she explained that it might work like an artificial or spirit weapon, so he would need to use his blood to activate it and form a contract with the power. Upon hearing this, Ying became pumped that they might have a shot at winning, but Mizu dropped some bad news, saying it was pretty risky releasing a weapon spirit because it might take over his body completely. This scared the living daylights out of Ying, but he agreed to release the weapon spirit anyway since this was the best option out of all their terrible choices, and Mizu immediately sliced his palm with her magic weapon as she summoned the spirit. The spirit materialized, and Ying offered it his blood to form the contract. Then a gorgeous lady spirit appeared which Mizu sensed had an incredibly high cultivation level, and Ying got excited thinking they didn't need to fear the old creep anymore. However, the weapon spirit burst his bubble when she told him that he needed to be at ascendant soul level to unleash her full power. She further said that he was too weak to keep her summoned for long, more like a 1-minute man of cultivation, and she vanished just to really drive home her point. Mizu told him that his cultivation level couldn't even use a tiny fraction of its true strength, and the loser suggested that they get naughty to boost his power, but she rejected him again. Later that night, Ying thought that if he couldn't use his weapon spirit for fighting, he would at least use her for some more intimate benefits, so he cut his palm again to try summoning her, but he struggled. The next day, while he was walking around thinking about their strategy to defeat Yue's master, Zhao showed up again with 2 cultivators and demanded that he hand over Mizu if he wanted to keep breathing, but he told him that decision was up to Mizu, which really ticked him off. Zhao ordered the 2 cultivators with him to attack, and as they charged at him with devastating attacks, Yue and Mizu suddenly appeared to block them. They both summoned their special weapons, and seeing this, the 2 cultivators got excited, making Yue and Mizu realize they were dealing with weapon hunters. They both launched attacks with their weapons, but the 2 cultivators quickly cast some spells that neutralized their attacks and captured both of them, blocking them from using their powers. Ying tried to join the fight too, but they quickly put his wheat behind on the ground. One of the cultivators threatened to delete him permanently if Yue and Mizu didn't surrender their weapons. Ying started running his mouth with trash talk, and the guy decided to silence him forever. But just as he was about to stab him, a brilliant light suddenly blazed, and his weapon spirit appeared to save his sorry hide. She also freed Mizu and Yue, shocking the 2 cultivators, who then immediately tried to make a run for it. But Mizu stopped them, and they dropped to their knees begging for mercy before running with their tails between their legs. Meanwhile, Yue's master was watching from a distance, and he was thrilled that these fools would soon become his sacrificial offerings to reach the late stage of core formation. Mizu gave Zhao the ultimate warning to never mess with Ying again, or she would show him what pain really felt like. This completely crushed Zhao's soul, and the poor guy ran off like a rejected puppy after getting turned down by a girl in front of everyone. Meanwhile, Yue was checking out the weapon spirit like she had never seen anything this wild before, wondering how the heck something like this even existed. The weapon spirit introduced herself and mentioned having some kind of blood contract with Ying, which made things even more confusing. Mizu was shocked that Ying had managed to train the spirit so well in just one night, which seemed impossible for someone at his level. Yue started talking about seeing his powerful cultivation weapon before, but Ying's brain immediately flashed back to Chuanzi warning him to keep his mouth shut about their meeting and the weapon he received, or there would be serious consequences. Since the Hun Tian beads were connected to Chuanzi's family legacy, Ying knew he couldn't spill the beans, so he quickly lied and said he had no clue where the weapon came from. Yue asked the weapon spirit for her name, thinking they could figure out more about the cultivation weapon from her identity, but the spirit dropped a bombshell by saying she didn't have a name at all. Everyone stood there like confused statues until Ying suggested they give her one. Ying called her Ling, which she accepted immediately since he was her master. Yue bounced to go set up the Yang Flame Array, which they needed for the upcoming showdown with her twisted master. Mizu turned to Ying and told him he needed to stop being such a weakling in battles, which made him want to crawl under a rock from embarrassment. Ling backed up Mizu's roast by telling him he seriously needed to level up his cultivation to avoid becoming monster food. Ying felt like garbage knowing how pathetic his fighting skills were, but Ling explained that his cultivation level was actually decent. He just fought like someone who had never thrown a punch in his life. She pointed out that Mizu was worried about him getting eliminated, and he admitted he was tired of always hiding behind women like some scared Yunjin. So, Ying decided to take him into another dimension to help boost his combat skills. Meanwhile, Mizu watched them disappear from a distance, secretly hoping Ying would teach him some escape techniques because she figured they had about zero chance of surviving the battle against Yui's master. Ying showed Ying the incredible world inside the Hun Tian beads, and his mind was completely blown by how such a massive space could fit inside those tiny balls. She explained that the cultivation world was packed with miraculous weapon spirits and legendary weapons, then revealed her own origin story about being created by her original master using 10 rare treasures and getting powered up with 10 years of pure spirit energy in some frozen realm. Ying was impressed and figured she must be incredibly powerful, but Ying brought him back to reality by reminding him that her power output was limited by her master's cultivation level. He asked if there was some way she could eliminate the core formation monster with her high-level powers, and she confirmed there was indeed a method, but it would mean she could never see him again. This news hit him like a truck, and he immediately asked if this required sacrificing her life, which she confirmed with a simple yes. She explained that if he fused with her or got too intimate during cultivation, it would trigger a massive explosion that would turn hundreds of miles into a wasteland. Ying immediately shot down this idea, saying he would never let her be used as a disposable weapon. He then asked why he was still so weak despite having more spirit energy than Mizu, and she broke down the science for him. She explained that a cultivator's strength came from converting the essence of heaven and earth into spirit energy through special energy channels in their body. Since his spirit energy came from external sources instead of his own cultivation work, he lacked the knowledge of how to actually use it properly. Surprised by this revelation, he asked how he could learn to use his current spirit energy effectively. Ying said she had a solution and moved behind him to remove his clothing, which made him panic and ask if this was the same thing that could cause the massive explosion. He started freaking out and trying to stop whatever was happening, but Ying looked at him like he had lost his mind, which made him realize his thoughts had wandered into inappropriate territory, and he felt like a complete loser. She told him to sit down and close his eyes so she could guide his spirit energy properly. When she started moving her hands over his body to direct the energy flow, he got flustered again, but she told him to focus on the training instead of being distracted. After she guided the spirit energy through his system for a while, he was amazed to discover he could actually control it. Ying told him his learning speed was impressive, and with 5 to 10 days of cultivation, he could master his spirit energy usage. He told her to stop joking around because they had a major battle coming up, and he didn't have weeks to spend training. She revealed there was another method where she could transfer her spirit energy directly to him, which would let him use his power freely right away. The downside was that the process would be extremely painful, but Ying told her to go ahead anyway since he was desperate. She began channeling her spirit energy into his body, which felt like getting struck by lightning repeatedly. The pain was so intense he thought he might pass out, but he endured it by thinking about all the suffering Yue and Mizu had experienced in their pasts. The agony became almost unbearable, but finally the spirit energy transfer was completed and they both stood up, just when they thought they could catch their breath. A tree spirit that had been spying on them the whole time suddenly launched a surprise attack. Ying tried to block the tree spirit's attack, but accidentally blasted it into oblivion with a power surge from his hand, which left him staring at his own palm like he couldn't believe what just happened. Ying explained that he could now use the spirit energy transfer technique he just experienced to perform low-level cultivation arts that he had already learned. Hearing this, he quickly tested out his new abilities and was amazed when they actually worked properly. Ying congratulated him for finally figuring out how to use spirit energy like a real cultivator instead of a complete amateur. He asked her why there had been a tree spirit lurking around in the first place, and she admitted she didn't know all the secrets of the Hun Tian beads, even though she had been living there for ages. All she could tell him was that the place was packed with spirit energy that was way more concentrated than anything in the outside world, which explained why random creatures kept showing up. Later, Mizu took them to some weird cultivation shop that looked shadier than a back alley deal. Ying was surprised these kinds of sketchy places still existed in the modern cultivation world. She spotted some questionable adult merchandise and innocently asked what those items were for. So Ying quickly made up some nonsense about them being magical treasures used by elder cultivators, hoping she would buy his explanation. And she did. They walked into the shop and got greeted by some employees who tried way too hard to be entertaining but just ended up looking like complete clowns. Mizu got annoyed with their amateur performance and fried their laptop with her powers, which shocked them into realizing she was actually a cultivator. The female receptionist had the audacity to congratulate Mizu for getting into debt because that P key was a MacBook. But Mizu pulled a total boss move by throwing her VIP credit card at them. The two unattractive receptionists nearly fainted when they saw it was some ultra-rare golden diamond VIP card that only the most elite customers possessed. They immediately decided to escort her to meet their boss personally. But when Ying and Ling tried to follow, the staff blocked them and said they didn't allow broke people in the VIP section. Mizu handed Ying a pouch full of low-level spirit stones and told him to browse around while she handled business. Ling explained that these spirit stones were basically the currency of the cultivation world, which fascinated Ying since he had never dealt with magical money before. The female receptionist could smell his inexperience from a mile away and decided to target him. She suggested they check out the shop's magical treasures, and Ying eagerly agreed since he desperately needed a decent weapon for the upcoming battle. The lady led them to the treasure section and showed off various products, but everything was way out of his price range since he only had 50 spirit stones to work with. The receptionist told him that even with her generous discount, the cheapest item in the shop still cost 300 spirit stones. Ying got discouraged and said he would rather keep his money instead of spending it on overpriced junk, but the receptionist wasn't about to let a potential customer walk away with unspent cash. She told him they could offer him a chance to win high-value items through their special program, which immediately caught his attention like a fish seeing bait. She suggested they play a gambling game where he could either win valuable magical treasures or completely worthless garbage with just a small investment. Ying asked Ling if he should participate, and she gave him the green light, so he followed the receptionist to check out the prize selection. Meanwhile, the shop boss examined Mizu's VIP card and was stunned to discover it was completely legitimate. He told her that in the past 100 years, no family other than the legendary Lee cultivation clan had been given such an exclusive card. The boss introduced himself as Meimeizi, the branch manager, and Mizu told him she wanted the most valuable magical item in their entire inventory. He said he could make that happen, but only if she surrendered the VIP card as payment, which she agreed to without hesitation. As Meimeizi went to retrieve the item, the ugly male receptionist questioned whether this was a smart business decision. Meimeizi brushed off his concerns, explaining that the item was basically useless anyway since it could only protect users from attacks below the nascent soul level, which made it outdated garbage in today's cultivation scene. Back in the gambling section, the female receptionist showed Ying and Ling a collection of sealed boxes containing hidden valuable treasures. Ling told him she could easily break through the magical seals, so picking the best treasure wouldn't be a problem with her assistance. Ying got excited and wandered around trying to decide which box looked the most promising. When he asked for her opinion, Ling selected one that looked completely ordinary and unremarkable compared to the others. When they opened the box, they found nothing but a rusty old dagger called the Soul of the Dragon Blood, which made the female receptionist internally celebrate because she thought they had picked the worst possible prize. Ying tested the weapon expecting to unleash some hidden power, but it just felt like a regular piece of junk that belonged in a garbage bin. After they left the gambling area, the receptionist rushed to her boss to brag about the easy profit she had just made from those gullible customers. Meimeizi praised her clever salesmanship and asked what treasure had been in the box they selected. When she casually mentioned it was just some rusty dagger called the Soul of Dragon Blood, Meimeizi immediately lost some blood as he realized they had just accidentally given away one of their most valuable and legendary items to a couple of clueless customers. Later, Yue showed up to report to her master like a good little student, and he asked about the progress of the mission he had given her. She told him she had failed completely, but this old geezer wasn't buying her innocent act for a second. He revealed that he already knew she had teamed up with those two cultivators to plot his elimination, which made Yue's blood run cold. She tried to deny everything, but he dropped an even bigger bombshell by telling her that everything had been under his watchful eye because he had been disguised as the janitor, cleaning up at the school the whole time. Yue was completely shook and accused him of being a sneaky creep, but he casually explained that disguising himself as maintenance staff was the perfect way to drain some students dry while also eavesdropping on their plans against him. Without warning, he launched a vicious attack at her, but she managed to dodge it and started running for her life while this psycho chased after her like a horror movie villain. Meanwhile, Ying and his crew were examining his new weapon when Ling dropped some serious knowledge about what he had actually won in that rigged gambling game. She told him it was a sealed spirit weapon with a real dragon soul trapped inside it, which made his rusty dagger suddenly seem way more interesting. She explained that according to legend, some senior cultivator had eliminated a red dragon that was terrorizing the world and sealed its soul into this very dagger. She added that the red dragon blood coating on the blade was extremely corrosive and could melt through almost anything. Ying and Mizu were amazed that Ling knew the complete history of this random weapon, and she told them she had been around for ages, so she had heard all kinds of ancient stories. She then revealed the ultimate plot twist. it was actually Chuanze who had taken down the dragon, which made Ying realize he had stumbled onto something incredibly valuable after all. He wondered what would happen if he released the real dragon to chomp on their core formation enemy, but Ying quickly shot down that idea. She explained that the real dragon was a demon beast that hated humans and would probably cause even more chaos if set free. Plus, she had no clue how to actually release the thing anyway, so that plan was dead in the water. Mizu, being her usual pessimistic self, complained that this made the weapon completely useless, but Ying disagreed. She pointed out that since it was a magical treasure, there had to be some technique for using it properly. She suggested that Ying try channeling his spirit energy into the dagger to see what would happen, so he gave it a shot immediately. The results were absolutely wild. He suddenly cloned himself into 3 copies using some technique called body separation. Mizu, who could find the downside in winning the lottery, thought this was garbage, but Ying pointed out that she couldn't even tell which body was the real one despite her advanced cultivation level, which impressed Ying. Mizu was also shocked that he could now use spirit energy so smoothly, and he gave all the credit to Ying for not giving up on his hopeless case. Suddenly, Ying received an urgent telepathic message from Yue warning him that her master planned to eliminate them all and telling him to meet at their predetermined location. He immediately informed Mizu and prepared to leave, but she got scared and asked if he really wanted to go through with this self-isekai mission. When he confirmed he was committed, she handed him the protective pendant she had bought at the sketchy cultivation shop and made him promise to stay alive no matter what happened. They all rushed out together, with Ying determined to protect Mizu at all costs. The evil master continued hunting Yue down like a bloodhound, and he revealed that this had been his master plan all along since the day he took her as his student. He had always intended to eventually eliminate her so he could break through to the late stage of core formation, which made Yue absolutely furious at being played for such a long time. Meanwhile, Mizu told Ying that they weren't nearly strong enough to defeat their enemy and suggested they try to figure out how to use the array formation since that was their only hope of winning. However, Ying's gut was telling him something was seriously wrong with this whole situation. Even though he couldn't put his finger on what exactly fell off, the evil cultivator finally cornered Yue as she ran out of places to escape. And since she had nowhere left to run, she decided to fight him with everything she had. But this arrogant noob told her she had absolutely zero chance of victory against someone at his level. He launched an attack at her, but Ying swooped in with a perfectly timed counterattack that saved her from getting eliminated. The evil cultivator noticed that Ying was using body separation technique, but he didn't seem impressed at all and unleashed a devastating attack called Bloody Palm that targeted all 3 of them. Yue and Mizu quickly stepped forward to defend against it, but they still got roughed up pretty badly. Ying attacked with his clones while Yue and Mizu followed up with their own special moves, but the old monster blocked everything they threw at him. Yue realized that his defense was too strong and they needed to find some weakness they could exploit, so they decided to coordinate their attacks. But this twisted geezer was having the time of his life watching their desperate attempts, taunting them about how clueless they were regarding the true power of core formation level cultivation. He soon overpowered them completely, which made Ying think about using the real dragon blood on his dagger as a last resort. He charged at the enemy with a direct punch attack, but at the exact moment their attacks collided, he quickly summoned his dagger and managed to break through the villain's defense, dealing a small amount of damage to his chest. The old psycho was completely stunned that someone could actually hurt him at the core formation level and started wondering what kind of crazy weapon Ying was wielding. He rushed forward like a maniac, grabbed Ying by the throat, and began draining his spirit energy like some kind of energy vampire. But then Ying suddenly disappeared into thin air, and one of his clones appeared to attack the confused geezer, making him realize he had been choking a fake the whole time. What this ancient fool didn't know was that the dragon blood dagger had an even more broken ability. It let the user transfer their soul between different bodies, which meant Ying could basically teleport out of danger by switching to another clone whenever things got sketchy. The old monster decided to stop playing around and activated his ultimate technique called Fiend Art, which started pulling them toward him while simultaneously draining their blood and spirit energy like the world's most terrifying vacuum cleaner. Ying immediately summoned Ying, who countered the deadly technique and saved them from getting turned into dried-up husks. She created a protective barrier around them and told Ying she could only hold this psycho off for about 2 hours before her power ran out. The old devil tried to figure out what level Ying's cultivation was at, but when he couldn't sense it properly, he assumed she was just bluffing and launched another attack that cracked her barrier. However, Ling reinforced the barrier immediately, which shocked the old man into realizing this wasn't some empty threat after all. But the barrier started shrinking under pressure, which got the evil cultivator excited because he thought victory was within reach. He began throwing attack after attack at the barrier while wondering why someone with such a high cultivation level wasn't fighting back. Eventually, his brain cells connected the dots, and he figured out that Ling must be a weapon spirit, which explained why she could only defend and not attack. Yue was shocked that he had discovered Ling's true nature and told her friends they needed to escape immediately, while Ling kept the monster busy. They bolted into the forest to set up the array formation they needed to trap this moron, and after they reached safety, Ying absorbed Ling back into his body where she belonged. After some time passed, the old man caught up with them and was surprised they had stopped running like scared rabbits. He lunged toward them with murderous intent, and Yue immediately started casting the spell to activate their trap array. The evil cultivator fell right into their trap and began struggling against the magical bindings, so Ying and Mizu quickly launched their attacks while the iron was hot. Yue also unleashed her most powerful technique, but they were all left speechless when the old man suddenly broke free and blasted them backward like they were annoying flies. Yue demanded to know why their carefully planned array had zero effect on him, and he started laughing like the twisted mastermind he was. He revealed that she must have secretly studied his fiend art techniques from his personal instruction book, but then dropped the ultimate plot twist. All the weaknesses and countermeasures written in that book were completely fake. He had deliberately included false information to trick her into using this specific array formation, which would actually boost the power of his fiend art instead of weakening it. Basically, they had just handed him the perfect setup to eliminate them and steal all their spirit energy. Yue and Mizu realized they had walked straight into the world's most elaborate trap and were now completely doomed, so they started running for their lives again, while the old devil tried to stop their escape. Ying summoned Ling once more to block his path and give his friends a chance to get away. The evil cultivator watched his prey fleeing and started thinking of ways to stop them from escaping his grasp. Suddenly, he called out to Yue and began talking about the massacre that had destroyed her village years ago, which made her freeze in her tracks like she had been struck by lightning. He started telling the most twisted backstory ever, explaining that 20 years ago, he had been tracking the snake spirit to her village because he wanted to get his hands on the creature's core. But he never expected to stumble upon a Yunjin who had already reached the late stage of ki condensation, which was absolutely insane for someone that young. He discovered that Yue had a special body that could cultivate automatically since birth, which he saw as the ultimate jackpot for fixing his own terrible cultivation talent. This sick freak disguised himself as the fortune teller and tried to convince little Yue to come with him, but when she refused, he came up with the most evil plan imaginable. He decided to massacre her entire village while disguised as the snake spirit, and he even used some magical herb that could make the snake spirit go completely berserk. The innocent little girl thought her best friend had eliminated everyone she loved and begged him for help getting revenge, which gave him the perfect opportunity to manipulate her into following him and training under his twisted guidance. The old psycho then revealed the final gut punch. Not only had he successfully tricked Yue into becoming his student, but he had also obtained the snake spirit's core during all that chaos. Hearing this broke Yue's heart completely, and she started crying as she thought about how her only friend had been used as a weapon against her own family. The rage and betrayal hit her like a freight train, and she summoned Li Fire as she charged back toward this monster who had destroyed her entire life. Ying followed right behind her as backup, and when Yue approached the old devil with a furious attack, he blocked her assault with a powerful barrier like it was nothing. But while this arrogant geezer was focused on Yue, Ying appeared out of nowhere and stabbed him with the soul of the real dragon blood, which actually managed to pierce through his defenses. The old man became absolutely livid and activated some insane controlling art technique that started messing with the weather itself. Meanwhile, up in the sky, Zhao was cruising in his private jet with his butler when sudden turbulence hit the aircraft and doomed it for a crash landing. The pilot immediately grabbed a parachute and bailed on everyone else, leaving Zhao and his butler to figure out their own survival plan. Another passenger who clearly didn't care about Zhao's well-being snatched the second parachute and tried to save himself. But the loyal butler stopped him and insisted that his master had to escape first. But honestly, who really cared about saving Zhao anyway? The selfish passenger wrestled with the butler over the parachute, which unfortunately tore the thing apart and sent the guy plummeting to his doom faster than the plane itself would have crashed. The butler spotted one last parachute and grabbed his master while desperately reaching for the emergency equipment that was about to fall out of the plane. Meanwhile, Mizu had come up with her own crazy plan and flew up into the sky to mount the crashing aircraft before activating her ultimate technique called Heaven's Punishment. She directed the entire plane toward the old devil like a guided missile, and when he saw this incoming disaster, he was shocked but also grateful that Mizu was only at Foundation establishment level, or he would have had to run for his life. As Mizu approached with her airplane projectile, the old devil immediately started absorbing the thunder energy from heaven's punishment to help him break through to the late stage of core formation. This was followed by a massive explosion from the plane crash that lit up the entire battlefield, and Mizu began deflecting lightning attacks that the old monster was throwing at her. The evil cultivator gathered a powerful lightning bolt in his hand and hurled it at Mizu, which knocked her out of the sky. Ying quickly ran to rescue her, but as he caught her in his arms, the old man unleashed another devastating lightning attack at them. However, the protective pendant that Mizu had given him earlier suddenly activated and saved them both from getting fried. But this relentless geezer wasn't about to give up, so he prepared to launch yet another attack. As the old devil approached them for the finishing blow, Ying combined his powers with Mizu's cultivation and unleashed a joint technique called Heaven's Punishment Girlfriend, which instantly sliced off one of the monster's arms and proved that teamwork really could overcome evil. The old psycho became even more enraged and immediately unleashed his most devastating attack called Blood Absorption, which started draining their blood and spirit energy at the same time like some kind of demonic vacuum cleaner. Lin appeared to try reducing the effect of this deadly technique, but she couldn't hold out for long since Ying was losing spirit energy faster than water draining from a bathtub. Ying realized that since Lin's power came directly from his own energy, if this monster kept absorbing his cultivation, she would also get weakened. So he commanded her to retreat back to the Hun Tian beads while he dealt with the situation alone. He charged toward the old man while summoning his dagger, but the evil cultivator immediately activated his controlling art technique to steal control of the weapon and turn it against its own master. Ying felt his blood burning inside his veins and remembered that the real dragon blood coating on the knife could corrode anything it touched, including his own body. The old geezer continued draining their life force and suddenly grabbed Mizu with his energy, pulling her toward him like a rag doll. She soon lost consciousness after having too much spirit energy drained from her body. And seeing this made Ying absolutely lose his mind with fury. He charged at the monster with a desperate attack, but the old man easily swatted him away like an annoying insect. Meanwhile, Yui was having hallucinations about her snake spirit friend and beating herself up for being too weak to get the revenge she had wanted for so many years. Ying saw Mizu lying motionless on the ground and immediately grabbed his dagger again. But this time something different happened. He transformed as his anger reached its absolute peak. He deliberately cut his own arms with the corrupted blade and flung the dagger high into the air, then taunted the old man to absorb all the blood he wanted. However, his blood passed through the floating dagger first, which caused it to become corroded before the evil cultivator unknowingly absorbed the poisoned life force into his own body. The old monster immediately started feeling a burning sensation spreading through his insides, and his face began melting away like acid was eating through his skin, which completely shocked him. This horrific reaction stopped the blood absorption technique, and Yui immediately launched another attack at him, but he still had enough strength left to deflect her assault and kick her away like a soccer ball. He tried to attack Ying next, but our hero blocked the strike and immediately rushed forward at full speed. The old man's body was rapidly corroding from the poisoned blood, so he quickly activated some earth manipulation technique and rained multiple attacks down on Ying. But nothing could stop him now. He broke through every defense and charged forward with unstoppable momentum before piercing the dagger straight through the monster's chest. The evil cultivator began burning from the inside out, and with his dying breath, he declared that his fellow senior apprentice would come to avenge his death. He also placed a curse on Ying, saying he would live in constant fear for the rest of his life, but Ying figured this was just the desperate rambling of a defeated villain. It became overjoyed that she had finally gotten revenge for her friend and family after all these years of suffering. Ying walked over to Mizu's unconscious body and suddenly called out to some unknown elder, who was surprised that his presence had been detected. Ying explained that he had felt someone watching them ever since Mizu entered his consciousness and made contact with the Hun Tian beads. The mysterious elder asked why he was revealing himself now, and Ying said he wanted help saving Mizu's life. When the elder questioned why he should provide assistance, Ying bowed deeply and promised to do anything that was demanded of him. The elder then revealed that he had been keeping an eye on Ying specifically to get his hands on the Hun Tian beads. So Ying immediately summoned the precious artifact and offered it up without hesitation. But the unknown elder explained that he couldn't take the beads from this location because he existed in a different dimensional space. Instead, he proposed making a 3-year agreement where Ying would have to bring the Hun Tian beads to him personally. When Ying asked for the name of this mysterious place, the elder said that revealing it was forbidden by the highest rules of that realm, and he would need to discover the answers himself. Ying then asked what would happen if he failed to meet the terms of this agreement, and the elder coldly told him that Mizu's life would be forfeit, which sent chills down his spine. Later, after Mizu had recovered from her injuries, she took him to a peaceful garden where she used to spend quality time with her mother. In that beautiful setting, he promised to protect her and prevent anything terrible from ever happening to her again. And after hearing his heartfelt vow, Mizu decided it was finally time to reclaim her real first kiss from him. If you have reached this far, comment RIP Mizu to confuse the fake fans, give this video a like, subscribe to this channel, and turn on the notification bell. See you on the next one. Bye.